Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the stream. I'm doing another one-on-one lesson today. Today we have Joel, aka Thorbiddles, joining us. Welcome, welcome. How's it going today?
Good, yeah. I mean, I'm on stream with an international master. I'm on the coolest Twitch stream on the planet. It's going great.
Sweet. Well, glad to have you. Joel redeemed the one-on-one lesson for 100,000 dojo gold. And yeah, here we are. Actually, yeah, we always start with just a little bit of a background. Maybe you could tell folks a little bit about where you're from, and as well as the story behind your username. People always want to know.
Yeah, I'm from San Diego. As far as Thorbiddles, I wanted a really cool, manly name when I was playing online poker. And, because it would intimidate my opponents. And Joel is manly, of course, but I figured Thor Biddlesworth would be the manliest name that maybe could intimidate people. And over the years, I've just gotten lazy. So instead of Biddlesworth, I go by Thorbiddles now.
It's great. It's such a good name. Cool. And yeah, maybe you could tell folks a little bit about your chess. Did you play any tournaments before the pandemic started? And if not, what kind of chess have you been doing?
Yeah, I mean, a long time ago in college, I played with my roommates. We had a chessboard and we played some, and I played on Yahoo Games. That was where the cool kids played before chess.com. And I played on a PlayStation 2 video game. PlayStation 2, that tells you how long ago it was. And for whatever reason, I just stopped playing chess. I don't know why. That wasn't the best decision. But then, yeah, the pandemic hits. My boss shows me an Eric Rosen YouTube video, and I've just been addicted to chess these past 9 months.
That's awesome.
Played thousands of games.
Yeah, is that what you mainly do? Just play a lot of games? And I saw you play a lot of time controls. Do you have any specific time controls you mainly play?
Well, variety is always good. And then, if your blitz rating drops, you got to play blitz to get it back up. And if your rapid rating drops, you have to play to get that back up. So yeah, I mix it up a lot. Everything about it just makes it a little bit more addicting for me, but it's a fun addiction. So
yeah.
I like it.
Cool. And then outside of playing, are you doing anything like studying or any courses or anything like that?
I started doing Chessable a couple months ago, and I think that's helped with some of the lines that I play. And I started doing the Visualize series on Chessable, where they make you do puzzles but try to visualize them more than a couple moves ahead.
Yeah.
And that's been helpful for me because I've always been lazy with puzzles, doing them kind of a move or two at a time. Mm-hmm. And the advice that you and David give us to, take our time and see things through to the end, that's been helping me. I only caught on to Dojo a couple months ago. And so I feel like my chess has definitely improved these past 2 months, in large part to you guys.
That's great to hear. So yeah, you have kind of like an interesting case. Have you played any of like the classical events or any like of the longer time controls?
Only last month was my first try at those with the Dojo Classical.
And how did that go?
It went great for my opponents. Yeah, because I'm more of a speed chess guy.
Right.
I did win one game though. I won one and lost two.
Okay. And so yeah, how did it feel in terms of the time management? Did you feel like you were still playing really quickly, like you didn't know like what to do with all the extra time, or what was it like?
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to force myself to slow down, even though I pretty much knew what move I was going to make.
Right.
Still tried to take my time with each move.
Yeah.
So that's something that I need to work on, is making use of the time a
I
little bit
see.
better.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common, especially with players that are like really used to just rapid and blitz time controls, because you really have to just make decisions quickly in that format, and you can't really afford to invest a lot of time like thinking deeply about a move. Either you have a tactic and you kind of quickly figure it out, or you don't, and you just move on, you improve your position and like kind of keep going. Um, but in classical chess, right, like you might have like a critical moment early on, like move 7, move 11. And like, yeah, the difference between the best move and the second best move might be pretty significant. The difference between the second best move and like the third best move might be significant as well. So it's like there definitely is a value to kind of spending your time and making sure you get it right. But it's not easy if you don't really have practice, just taking your time. So I guess my important question is, it's like maybe what's the goal here? Because if the goal is to try to play like some over the board tournaments, which are usually classical, or get more into like classical time controls, then that's one thing. But if you're happy to just play like focus on rapid chess and then occasionally do classical, then I would think we need kind of like a different strategy if you just wanted to focus on the speed chess.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like chess in general, so I think I'd like to try to improve in all aspects, because I like speed chess, but I've enjoyed classical too.
Okay, it's a tough answer. Yeah, it's really a tough one. I don't know, because I think a lot of times working on one time control versus the other might hurt certain aspects. For instance, like if you wanted to improve your classical chess, then 100% the main thing I would say is like yeah, it's time to work on like your visualization and like your calculation, and trying to take some time to like learn how to like fully investigate a position, calculate different variations, come to an evaluation, and then I think this would be the best thing for your classical chess. But if you started doing that in rapid, for sure your results in the short run would get worse, and you would feel like you're spending too much time, and then you might have a good position, but then you don't have enough time later on to like close it out. So the short-term results can really suffer in blitz and rapid. So I just want to like throw that out there so that you and I guess others are aware that are in like a similar position. Like when you're working on your like hardcore, yeah, like classical chess, it's can be really, really good long term, but yeah, in the short run, it's like it definitely won't feel comfortable or natural or anything like that. Um, that said, I think you can strike a balance as long as you just kind of adjust to the time control. So this is, I think, the thing that top players always talk about. They always talk about like adjusting to the time control. So if you're just playing like classical chess year round, and then all of a sudden you have to play a blitz game, that would be really hard, because you're just used to playing classical. You have tons of time on your clock. Now you have to play blitz and play like really, really quickly every move. And I think that the same is true vice versa. So I would say whatever time control you're playing, try to like keep in mind like, okay, you're playing a rapid game, you want to play good moves, but you can't take forever on a decision, because then you'll run low and won't have enough time to close it out. Okay, I also wanted to ask you about your openings a bit, because I know you mentioned like you're not super great with like puzzles and calculating, but you also play like really sharp openings. You're playing like all these gambits. So what's the deal there?
I like open positions. I do not like when all the pawns get locked and our pieces are hiding behind the pawns, and it drives me crazy when people do that. So yeah, I definitely like whatever can lead to a good, fun kingside attack, Austrian attack, Smith Mora, Goring, all of those. They're just too much fun for me to stop playing.
I see. But then, like, I guess during their games, you're going to be sacrificing material to get this attacking position. then you have to come up with some tactics to actually close it out. Or do you feel more comfortable in positions where you're kind of like building the attack like move by move?
Oh yeah, I guess that is a good point because I do get winning positions sometimes, and then I can't find the right move to
Yeah.
to finish it off. um, yeah, yeah, I don't know. Either way, as long as I'm attacking, I'm happy. If I'm on the defensive, my defensive skills are pretty lacking as well. So,
Mhm.
so I think that's one more reason that I like to go for the attack.
I see. Well, so yeah, that could be something to work on in terms of learning to defend better, because of course you're going to run into opponents that are like you and trying to attack every game. And I think chess is really about kind of like striking a balance, right? Because it's not like, you know, it's not like you can just like attack in every position. Black is always okay and should have a counter, but it's all about kind of navigating those dynamics and playing to your strengths and trying to minimize the like the opponent's strengths. So yeah, one way I think you could possibly see improvement is right, just working on the tactics, working on the calculation, because then you'll feel like that's a weapon for you. And if you have a good position, if you have a lot of pieces around the enemy king, you know, like you'll just find the breakout, you'll find the knockout and checkmate them. But yeah, I also want to kind of just point out that when we're playing like Blitz and Rapid, as the attacking player, you are kind of putting a lot of pressure on yourself by like sacrificing material. And then if it doesn't work out, you're like down a pawn, down two pawns, might have like a bad position. So
Yeah,
that's
I've run into
definitely
that before.
right. So that's kind of the struggle. It's like when you play super sharp in the fast time controls, you do have the onus then on you as the attacker to kind of like justify your play. However, in classical, when you attack, you would kind of have more time. So it's like it's to your advantage a little bit, because then if you have a really good position, you have more time to kind of figure it out and like sort through the tactics. And if you need more time to kind of calculate and slow down, then that'll be available for you. So I guess my main recommendation then would definitely be like, you know, if you have the effort and the motivation to work on your kind of like multiple move visualization / calculation. If we want, we could do some like just brief exercises, because I think it definitely is doable for you. Like there's no way you can get to, you know, 2000 without being able to calculate a little bit. So I'm sure the visualization is there. But it would just be a matter of like training it over time and then slowly improving it. And then over time, I think the speed would also come in terms of being able to see the line kind of like quicker and being able to calculate like very precisely in a game, even if it's just like 2 or 3 moves. And then let's say beyond that, I think actually we should go a little bit through your opening repertoire, and might be different positions you could start playing that I think would also just be like good for your chess overall. Like in general, I think playing new positions usually kind of exposes you to new ideas, and then it gives you kind of like more weapons to work with during the game. Actually, I have my first question is, what do you play against d4?
Yeah, I don't like d4, so I play Budapest.
Okay, so Budapest Gambit, right? Definitely not the most solid opening. But then the question with the Budapest is, what do you do if White just plays like knight f3?
Oh no! Did you see that game where I forced the Budapest when I wasn't supposed to?
No, actually, I didn't.
Okay, good.
Yeah, this is just the key question. Yeah, for all Budapest players.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, you put it on there for me. Is that?
Mm-hmm.
Am I supposed to make my move?
Either way, or yeah, just do you have something you usually do here, or?
I would. I think I typically go kind of a Slav, d5, c6.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, this is kind of an opening hole for you because this is just like completely different opening. Right now, white plays c4, and if you're okay with playing the Slav, then I would say just play this one from the start. No need to go for the Budapest. But I mean, it doesn't feel like the Slav is really what you're looking for in terms of the style, because you do get kind of like closed block positions here.
Yeah, I tried playing it against Dorton in last week's classical, and of course he knew what he was doing, so it went really well for him. And he recommended I try Semi-Slav. Is Semi-Slav one you might recommend for me?
So it's definitely a good opening, but I would say, well, you have to know quite a. Actually, it's not true. You don't have to know that much as black here. The main idea of the Semi-Slav is that you kind of block your bishop in temporarily with the long-term idea of, or eventual idea of taking on c4, pushing b5, getting the bishop to b7, and then one day pushing c5. So that's kind of your plan. I actually think, I don't know, kind of having second thoughts. I think it is very playable opening, and it's not one where you have to learn a ton of theory. There is definitely theory in these positions, like bishop g5 is a pretty sharp move. But I think like with most openings, you only need to learn as much theory as like you face over the board, right? So a lot of players with white, they don't go into the sharp lines either because they're also afraid of all the theory. So I don't think the theory is should be too much of a discouragement. So this one is very playable because like black's ideas are kind of fluid. Usually white plays like an e3 line, or maybe even with g3, or brings the queen out. But your idea is essentially the same. You're just looking for a good moment to take on c4, b5, bishop b7, and then eventually playing c5 and kind of getting your pieces out. I mean, as far as a solid opening goes, this one is certainly extremely solid. So like, this is one you can basically play forever. I was thinking one opening you might be, I don't know, might suit your style more is the Benko Gambit. I don't know if you've thought about this one.
Yeah, I've heard good things. I've just never given it a try.
Okay. I would consider it. It has the same issue as the Budapest, which is that if white doesn't play d4, c4, it plays like knight f3, or they start with like knight f3 here, and they do something like this, then you can't quite play your opening. You're not going to really get a nice version of the gambit. But that aside, against knight f3, you can play c5 and b5 here. You're just not gambiting the pawn. It's just going to be very unbalanced position, I would say. So if you're looking for something like, dynamic, and your opponents are not going to know that well, and it's just a matter of like getting your pieces out and getting some active play, I think it's actually a very interesting choice, especially if white accepts the pawn. My feeling is that black typically has a lot of fun in these positions. Because, okay, one day, let's say the bishops get traded. You go d6 here, white castles by hand, you castle as well, white develops. Basically, black's play here is super fluid. Like, all the pieces come out very easily. It's like, you know exactly where you're, what you're playing for, like just trying to put pressure on the queen side. And then in terms of like the tactics, it's not super complicated. It's just a matter of like, sometimes like white just blunders a pawn and you have like a quick tactic to pick it back up. And if there are no tactics in the position, then yeah, you're just kind of trying to build up, and there's almost always something to do, transferring this knight to c7 and b5, and yeah, long term just using your bishop to put pressure on this diagonal. So in my experience, from a practical point of view, these positions are not easy to play for white because they just have to try to hold on to this pawn and try not to like blunder anything, but it's really not that easy for white to like improve their position for too long here. So this definitely could be an option worth exploring.
Yeah, this one looks fun.
Yeah, I mean, as a d4 player, I can tell you I'm never happy against the Benko. And yeah, a lot of other d4 players kind of struggle against it as well. The Budapest, though, definitely, yeah, I think is not a huge fear. Although it certainly is tricky. I used to play it myself as black, but I was kind of in a similar boat as you. I just didn't have another opening. So I was like, well, this is tricky, and I know what I'm doing here, so I might as well play it. From the Budapest, I personally switched to the Tarash Defense, which is actually not bad as well, because it does give you very kind of open positions, and it gives you kind of like the open play that you're looking for here. But eventually, I kind of switched away from this one, because what white would usually do is kind of play this position like this. And one day the pawns, they get traded. Black is left with an isolated queen pawn. And if you play actively, you can, again, justify and compensate for the pawn. But again, it's one of those positions where it's like black is the one that has to play active. And if you don't find the right moves to kind of justify, then you're just left with a weakness on d5. And eventually you're just sacrificing the pawn or giving it up. So yeah, again, I was in this boat. I'm like, why am I playing these positions where I have to find like all these weird tactics, just to make it work? And like, I just want to play something solid. And so then I personally switched to the Nimzo. So this is also another choice I think you definitely should consider, because this position is, in my opinion, very easy for black to play. You just castle, you put the other bishop on the long diagonal to control the e4 square, and then you fight for the center with either d6 or d5 or c5. And eventually you're just trading off the bishop for white's knight as soon as white plays a3. And I think the Nimzo is just like a really solid opening, and you can definitely play it actively. And against knight f3, which is kind of, again, the problem when you don't really get your main opening, there are active options here. Like, for example, the Benoni, I think, is a really interesting opening. You might hate it. It's definitely not for everyone, but I think it's at least worth considering, because it's also not that easy for white to handle this position either. Whenever you're fianchettoing and putting this bishop on g7, the position is always just long-term dynamic. You always have chances, and even if white gets a good position, you kind of have your long-term asset, like your long-term trump, which is this like queenside majority. So in the long run, like, these pawns always kind of give you chances. So there are some options here against knight f3 as well. I would say the Bogo Indian is also actually can be a very simple choice, and then you just get a solid position, and then from there you can outplay your opponents. Well, it basically just, you're kind of playing more very solid structures without taking on a ton of risk. I don't know. How does that all sound? I know I threw a lot at you there.
Yeah, lots of good ideas there. Definitely Benko, I'm going to look up. And I think Nimzo. I think Nimzo sounds like a good one too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think the Nimzo is something you can play pretty much at any level, and it's like, yeah, just a very healthy opening for black. And Shaq in the chat is saying, like, against c5, which, okay, some players even play on move 1, they just go e3 because they're.
Can I say hi, Milton?
Oh, I love cats.
Say hi, Milton.
So yeah, some players, they don't even push d5 because they are kind of nervous about taking the space advantage. They don't want to deal with all of black's like pawn breaks here. So they just play e3, and then as far as you're concerned, you're already equalizing here with black, because white is just not developing in the most aggressive way. They're blocking their bishop, and you can just continue developing, putting the bishop on g7. I think if you've never played an opening with a bishop on g7, you really kind of owe it to yourself to try it out, because it's can be very dynamic typically, and a lot of fun. Okay, how about e4? E4 we're playing the Scandi, right?
Yeah, I do mix it up with playing Dragon, so I kind of go back and forth between Accelerated Dragon and Scandi.
Oh, okay, that's good. Cool. I like that you're playing kind of more than one thing here. Yeah, the Scandi in general, I mean, it's, I think, a perfectly solid opening, but it's like, I feel like you can only play it for so long, and eventually you just got to play something new and just start exploring different positions. Because, yeah, unless you like really, really enjoy playing these kinds of positions, I think there's not a ton of like advantage here over, let's say, other options. So you mentioned Accelerated Dragon. That's definitely a solid one. So let's say knight f3, knight c6, or are you playing with g6?
Let's see, what do I usually do? I usually bring out the knight to c6.
Mm-hmm. Let's say d4, take, g6, and yeah, imagine most of your opponents probably playing here. Say bishop g7, bishop e3, and then knight f6.
Yes.
Okay, let's say bishop c4.
Then I'll castle.
Mm-hmm. And let's say this one.
Yeah, I'd rather they not do that. Because I'd like to get into the d5 move, but I think it doesn't work now, so so I'd probably do d6.
Right. Yeah. So how do you feel about these dragon positions?
So they, they have more space on me, and I mean, I still like it as long as they don't crush me on the king side. Sometimes they come at me with the Yugoslav attack, and I know it's all about just going after them before they get to you, and and yeah, Yugoslav attack is pretty tough to face.
Yeah, it can be annoying. Because right, with this move order though, it's not as good as like the normal dragon, because white is committed to bishop c4, bishop b3. But then yeah, a lot of players here, I think they like try like f3 and then queen d2 and castling queenside. I'm pretty sure black has ways of dealing with this move order. I don't know the exact theory here, but yeah, I'm sure there is something to do.
Yeah, I guess this isn't really Yugoslav, huh? Because bishop would be on e2, and they do a quick queenside castle, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, right, the typical Yugoslav is considered when black plays like dragon move order, and then let's say there actually is a little bit of I don't know if called disagreement or what have you, but so this is kind of like main position of the dragon, where I think a lot of people refer to just bishop c4 specifically here as this being the Yugoslav attack. So this one where white goes bishop b3, castles, and so on. And then, yeah, we're very likely to just kind of transpose into that position we just saw. But white can also castle here, which I think is actually nowadays the more challenging move. After which black plays d5, which is interesting because it's like this move is so good for black, they're willing to just spend it with an extra tempo. Of course, that's the whole point of the accelerated dragon, is to try to get this one in one move so that white can't do this like super quick development anyway. But in my mind, I'm just like, okay, this is all Yugoslav. Just this setup for me is like Yugoslav attack. Queen d2, bishop e3, f3, g4. Against the Najdorf, it's called English attack, but it's basically the same thing. And yeah, so in your move order, white can try to get the same thing, but they just have to do it in a slightly different way. And so here, yeah, you kind of have a tempo to figure out what you're going to do on queen d2 and castles. But I think you do have options like bishop d7, a5, like this kind of stuff. I feel like can be really annoying. Pretty sure you can also take and go bishop e6 a lot of times. But I'm not a dragon expert, so I shouldn't say too much here. It definitely is very playable for black, though, so I think this is totally fine for you, as long as you feel comfortable in the positions. Okay, let's talk about your white openings a bit.
Okay.
So with white, we're playing mainly e4, right?
100% e4.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Yeah, I didn't see any d4 games.
No.
And then, okay, Sicilian, we're playing Smith-Morra.
Yes.
And then what if black goes in for like knight f6 here and tries to get the c3 Sicilian?
Yeah, I guess that's what we're going to wind up doing. So then I'll push pawn up and
see here.
And then I'll usually take that guy.
So you'll play into this position, which I mean is very playable, but yeah, basically like c3 Sicilian.
Yeah, not as much fun, but I think it's still okay.
But are you happy here?
No.
So that's the feeling I'm getting from a lot of your openings. It's like you're happy some of the time, but if they play the wrong thing, you're like, So I guess maybe, yeah, my other recommendation for you would be like, you got to figure out your opening repertoire, because you can literally play anything, it doesn't matter to me, but it's like, I think you're going to have more success if you're always playing positions that you like, just generally speaking. Because if you don't like the position, you're probably not going to play it that well or like really understand what to do exactly. Because I think if you understood what to do, you probably would like it more. You would feel like you have a good handle on it. And it's like, exactly. And there are like plans for white in this position. Like a lot of players here, they just play like knight c3 and just trade this one off. And they do get like some attacking chances. But yeah, you definitely kind of owe it to yourself, I think, to find positions that, again, like you find interesting. I don't think this is, like a total Smith-Morra killer. I'm pretty sure like you could play this move, which maybe is just like an interesting way to kind of switch it up. And the idea is that you don't push e5 and kind of give black another chance to kind of take and go into the gambit, which you of course want. And otherwise you're ready to just take back on d4 with like a really nice center. So if they go like knight c6 here, let's say knight f3, and then again you're threatening to take back with just a great position. And so if they take, we get our gambits. I don't know, maybe they can go e5 here. But I think you do get some chances in this position after like taking something like this. And let's say if takes maybe e5 here or castling, I think there are some ways you can still get like some interesting play. So you don't necessarily have to go into the c3 lines with e5. But there are also ways of making this position interesting. So it's not like this one is just super dull for white. Like a lot of attacking players do play these positions, and they quite enjoy them. So there are definitely options here. Like I mentioned, knight c3. Bishop d3 immediately is not a great move because black can take and go knight b4, and this is very annoying. But a lot of players will start with a3 and then play this one. And then you kind of get your bishop on the nice diagonal, and you castle here, and you can play for the kingside attack because black is usually castling kingside, and definitely white has like some real attacking chances here. So this could be another direction. It's just because like, you're playing the Smith Morra, you're not going to get this too often because I think most players, they just kind of go into it. But at least you'll have some weapon of dealing with this. You'll have something like you can try.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. I really like my bishop on d3 there, so a3 to stop the pesky horsey. That sounds like a good plan.
Cool, and that's all it takes is just kind of like one idea. It's just like now you somewhat feel better about your setup. You kind of understand what you're doing here, and it always just takes practice. You got to just play a bunch of games, see what happens, then analyze them, and try to learn. Actually, important question: how do we do on the game analysis? Do you like review your games ever, or like do any annotations?
Not to that extent. No, not where I use my own brain. I review them on chess.com and see what the engine says I'm doing horribly wrong, and when I can't believe that I'm missing pieces that my opponents leave hanging, and I think I did well, and then I look, I left my piece hanging, and I should have been crushed. So that's another thing I should probably try to do more is review the game myself before using the engine.
Yeah, I mean, I would say especially where that could be the most useful is kind of like the late opening, early middle game stage where you kind of have to come up with a plan. And when you're playing rapid chess, like normally you do spend some time there to kind of think about your options. Of course, when the game devolves into like a time scramble, like you and your opponents are always going to blunder a bunch there. So I actually wouldn't worry about that too much because it's not that instructive when the engine just tells you like, right, there was a piece you could have just taken. Like, oh, okay, next time, I'll take it. But the engine can definitely point out when you kind of like didn't choose the right plan. Actually, I noticed one game where this kind of happened that maybe could be instructive.
Uh-oh. Only one game?
One very apparent.
Okay.
Yeah, so here we have this was a rapid game, 10-minute game. And this opening definitely like objectively not the best, but I saw you get this quite a bit, and your opponents often just get a bad position. They just go like bishop c5 here, and you just get this like huge center, and already like you have a great opening. So for like rapid, like speechless repertoire, I think this kind of stuff makes a lot of sense because I think it's true most players don't feel super comfortable as black against these kinds of lines. So castles, rook e1, king h8, and I think your position is like fantastic. But then here you played a3 and b4, which I didn't quite get. It just felt like it's like your position looks great and you're just taking more space, but I guess we ended up putting our bishop on b2. And it feels like, okay, you're like, I don't know, kind of holding on to the space, but you're almost playing it like a d4 opening. Like this is something d4 players are often doing, putting the bishop on b2 and just kind of holding on. As an e4 player, I think you should be focused on the king side and attacking. Okay, so the engine, I think, points out some move like bishop f4 probably. Bishop e3 also looks good. I kind of like bishop f4 just because it can maybe support an e5 push. But basic plan here probably is like queen d2. And then you might just already be threatening to sack in a lot of positions. That could just already be very, very dangerous. But I would say actually maybe don't even worry about this one yet. Queen d2, rook a d1, and then look to advance either like e5 or d5, basically playing in the center and let's say a lot more aggressively. Okay, this is just one game, right? But like this is something I think let's say you did on your own after some of your games, I feel like you would pick up quite a few possible plans in these types of positions that you can then utilize. Because I know you'll get this kind of center again. Like I'm pretty sure you'll get maybe this exact position, right? And so you can definitely kind of take advantage of that by, well, basically reviewing your games and just finding little moments where like you played one move, the engine disagrees, shows you a better path, and then you can kind of like hopefully understand it. That's critical. So yeah, maybe something worth doing is getting like a Lichess study going or similar, and then just reviewing the openings. Actually, what a lot of players do is even for their blitz games, all they'll do is they'll just look at the first move where they were out of book, and they'll just analyze that one moment. Like the first time they had to kind of think on their own, they didn't know exactly what to do, and then just analyze, did they make the right move or was there something better? And then just try to learn like literally one move at a time. Or you can look up the book move if you're still in some kind of theory. But yeah, that could be a very simple approach where you're just kind of just starting out in terms of like analyzing your games and trying to just get some takeaways. Because of course, as you go into the game, it's going to be like a total mess and tons of tactics. And yeah, again, it's important to work on tactics and calculation. But as far as like improving your opening play goes, I would say this could be kind of an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
Cool. So I'm just reading chat here. Someone said, anyone who plays the Goring Gambit is a person of culture. Nice. Yeah. So it also gives you a chance to kind of like audit your opening repertoire, because you'll quickly find out like if there's a line or something that you just don't know what to do against or don't have anything against. It's like that process of having to analyze it, like you're just not going to want to repeat that position over and over again. So you'll hopefully get like more of an idea of, or I guess more of a push to kind of like revamp your repertoire and just start playing positions that you definitely enjoy. While we're here, are there any openings that you're like struggling against? Like usually the French can be kind of an issue, or the Caro-Kann. Do you need any suggestions somewhere?
That's funny you mentioned both of those. Both of those give me problems. I'm even thinking about playing the Caro-Kann now because I just struggle so much against it. If I play it, I'll see how people beat me, and then maybe I can do something against them. I've recently been trying the fantasy variation. Mm-hmm. With mixed results.
Yeah. Stylistically, I think this one makes sense for you. It's certainly really sharp and leads to some open positions. The Caro is an interesting one. Yeah, it's really solid. And traditionally, like the most ambitious thing I can do here has usually been considered the advanced variation. But then this one gets into those kind of like closed block positions you don't really want to see. So this isn't, I would understand this isn't exactly what you want. So F3 is not a bad choice. I actually think, I don't know if you've seen the E4 speedrun, but I think this position is actually pretty fun for white to play as well, or this structure, I should say, where you're just going to play like C3 against black's knight, and then eventually just try to use the E5 square. Like as far as like a simple setup goes, I actually think this one definitely very playable. The one little move order idea is that we want to kind of delay developing the knight until black figures out what they're doing with the bishop, whether they're playing bishop g4 or playing e6. They play e6, then okay, we're totally happy to get the knight out. And then if bishop g4, the idea is to first bring out queen b3, and then later the knight can develop after like knight d2, knight gf3, or knight e2 sometimes. So yeah, actually just simple recommendation. I think the structure is pretty fun. A lot of players will just play e6 here And then I think these positions are very comfortable for white, where we're going rook e1 and knight d2 and just controlling the e5 square. Whoa, getting huge raid from Grandmaster Maurice Ashley. Thanks so much. Welcome, guys. Welcome. We're just in the middle of a one-on-one lesson here. But yeah, welcome to the stream. This is Dojo, where we try to keep things instructive and educational. And yeah, if you watch for long enough, you can actually earn a literal one-on-one lesson on stream as we're doing now. So yeah, thanks for everyone who followed. Thanks again, Maurice, for the raid. I'll have to get you back soon. And yeah, welcome in, everybody. So I was just explaining this setup against the Caro, which is simple, but I think surprisingly not easy for black to deal with, where you just exchange and play for this e5 square. So this is one option. And then against the French, is there anything you've already tried and weren't happy with?
Yeah, I've tried a few different things. I've been sticking with the two knights recently. And it's all right. But
yeah, so usually you get something like knight f6, e5, knight d7, this kind of thing.
Yeah, and then I usually go d4. They play c5, and they get what they want anyways.
Yeah, it's still kind of a French, right? Exactly. Actually, as a French player, I was always happy with these positions because like white didn't play f4, so e5 pawn is always a little bit weak. And yeah, that said, actually, like there definitely is some venom in this line when you kind of play for like the early kingside attack. I can give you a couple of suggestions here on the French. So let's see. So if you play d4 here, this is okay, a big main line. One way to, I think, kind of put some pressures is this move with this knight ce2. The point of this one is to support your center with c3 and then basically just like transfer everything on to the king side. So this knight comes out to f3, this knight goes to f4, and you have like h4, bishop d3, you castle king side, and everything is just aimed at black's king side. And if they castle too early or not at the right moment, you just get a very powerful attack. You can even bring in the rook with rook h3, rook g3. So this is one option if you still want to kind of play like a French type of position and take some space. And then against the winnower, I would suggest just taking on d5 and keeping the position more open, because this one, I think the exchange is actually not that fun for black once they've committed the bishop to b4. And you can kind of keep things a little bit more active here with like queen f3, knight e2. So this is one option, playing knight c3. But I think another option here that was always very annoying actually for me as a French player is just this move b3. And then on d5, just playing bishop b2. And the point is you leave this pawn hanging for as long as you can. If black takes the pawn, eventually it's basically just not easy to hold on to it, and you can play like f3 and kind of gambit the pawn and just open up a lot of lines. But this one, I think, actually is kind of annoying for black. So if you want something just like totally out of like left field, and your opponents, I doubt, will have looked at it beyond a couple moves, if at all, this could be kind of a fun option. And I think what a lot of French players do is they just don't take the pawn. They just do whatever they can to avoid taking it. But then at some point you can advance e5, and I think maybe key move here, queen g4, and this can be annoying for black as well, where white's idea is just to kind of completely build up f4, knight f3, queen comes out to put a little pressure on black's king side, black plays g6, then the diagonal is kind of weak long term. So this can be fun for white as well. It's just kind of like a slightly unusual setup, but then all the pieces come out. And main thing is just not to play d4 in this structure, but to keep the bishop kind of somewhat open. I mean, it looks like the bishop is blocked, but the strength of this one is that it really makes it difficult for black to play their typical break with f6. So instead, white often just builds up on the king side. Then knight can come out to even c3 here, bishop d3. It's kind of funky, but I do think white gets some interesting attacking chances.
Yeah, I definitely like this one.
Yeah, worth a shot. I think if nothing else, it'll just give you some new positions to kind of explore and play around with. Personally, against the French, I mean, I've always been a fan of playing knight d2 here. I do think this one is just kind of slightly more comfortable for white, but it's not super sharp and aggressive. It's just kind of like, let's say, a decent move that white can play to kind of play for like a small but, let's say, nagging advantage. But yeah, some options for you there with knight c3 or maybe early b3. Not easy to play. Oh, the other option, actually, I should mention just for attacking possibilities is d3, the King's Indian attack. Because this is kind of like a system attack where the position is closed, but you are kind of getting this long-term attacking plan on the king side. And as far as I remember, French players don't feel super comfortable dealing with this one. Let's say, just for example, after some typical moves, white goes e5 and rook e1. And it's like, from your point of view, all your moves are kind of very standard. h4, bringing the knight to h2, bishop comes out to f4, queen e2, c3 somewhere, then h5. And then, yeah, again, everything is just pointed at the king side, and you can go full steam ahead, and it's up to black to create counterplay on the queen side. This is another option that it's like, I think is actually more dangerous in speed chess, because you have your plan, you have your middle game plan, and you know all your moves, whereas your opponent has to kind of like figure it out. And so in blitz and rapid chess, just having like a active plan that you can follow often gives you like advantage on the clock, and then of course you feel good about the position because you know exactly what your plan is to attack. So this could be an option as well. Okay, well, I'll leave that up for you to decide. Do I have a recommendation against this as black? Yeah, sure. When I was playing the French, I just didn't like these positions where we just get under attack. So I would just delay castling kingside here and get your queenside development going. So I would do like b6 here, say bishop b7. And the point is that if white commits too early and we haven't castled kingside yet, then there's still time to go queen c7, castle queenside, and then get like your counterattack on the opposite side of the board. And so I always found these positions to be really fun for black, though they're very double-edged. It's not like black is better. It's just really sharp opposite sides castling position. White can go like c3 and a3 and b4 and stuff. But yeah, I just didn't like getting attacked with my king on g8, so I preferred doing this. And then if white is very clever, then they're not going to commit to e5 until black has actually decided to castle kingside. So they're instead just gonna like keep the tension here, because if black castles queenside, then white of course opens the diagonal and then like can put a lot of pressure here. So this position is definitely very very complex. And a lot of times we just get this waiting game where black doesn't want to castle yet and white doesn't want to push e5, and someone has to kind of blink first. But eventually then I think black can castle. Like in this position, I think at some point you can castle or even like take on e4 and then end up castling kingside, and it's at least not that bad. So yeah, of course it's all playable, but it's a matter of how we handle the positions. Thanks, Michiko. Thanks. Okay, anything else we struggle with e4?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Kara and definitely French. Those are the main two I can think of.
Yeah.
Other than my own my own shortcomings when I have brain farts and whatnot. But yeah.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, as an e4 player, you're mainly going to see e5 and c5, and then you'll see some French and some Caro, and then you'll see options outside of that, but really not that often. Cool, Joel. Well, let's wrap it up there and let's kind of sum it up. I mean, basically, I think kind of have two things to work on if you really, I think, want to get the maximum improvement. Number one, as always, tactics and calculation. Maybe working on your visualization a bit, slowing down, right? Trying to solve the puzzle from the start without making the first move. I would strongly suggest using a physical board if one day you want to play like over the board tournaments, because that's definitely going to be like kind of a different experience when it comes to calculating. And then, of course, taking on maybe harder positions, doing puzzle rush like survival mode, for example, so you have like unlimited time to think about it. I think that could be an easy way to train, or finding like a course or a book with just slightly more difficult puzzles like combinations and things of this nature. And then the second thing is, revamping your opening repertoire so that you're actually playing the positions you want to play. And it's not just about trying to get your opponent into something, but you're kind of like, you're happy to play the structure every game. You're like almost excited, to play the opening as black. And it's not like we're just hoping the opponents go into some positions and avoid others. Because long term, I feel like that will always just kind of like hold you back. And in the process of exploring new positions, I think you'll pick up a lot of ideas, and I think it'll just kind of like embolden your chess all around. Like you'll just have new ideas in all kinds of positions just in this process of studying new openings and new middle games and just seeing more and more ideas over the board.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And I can't thank you enough for this. It's been so helpful and such an honor to be on your stream and getting a lesson from you. You and David and Jesse just do such a service for all of us. Awesome. And yeah, thank you so much.
That was great to hear, Joe. I really appreciate that. Well, best of luck. I look forward to seeing you in the future, and hopefully for round 2 here. I really appreciate that. And actually, I think we're gonna wrap up the stream here, guys. I'll be signing off and reading in a bit. Thanks to everyone who joined in. Thanks again, Maurice, for the raid. Much appreciated, everyone who followed. Play Chess at Work, thanks for subbing. And guys, actually, David is going to be around in a little bit over an hour, just an hour and 20 minutes. I think starting at 9 p.m., he's going to be hosting a fun little consultation event. So the way it'll work is you'll pair up with someone, and then you'll play a consultation match against a team of 2 others. I'm sure he'll explain it, and there's more info in our Discord, so make sure to join the Discord if you haven't already. And otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Switch over. Thanks, Joel. Take care.
Bye, everyone.